Your giving keeps us in Paris, France.
Where we continue to connect people to the kingdom using English language groups.
Your giving keeps us in Congo, where we continue to provide the hope of the gospel through radio.
You know, there's a spiritual rumbling taking place right now in Japan. God is doing a new thing.
We've already been able to distribute hundreds of masks in this community.
One of the things that the church pastors have arranged is for food kits to be delivered.
Another project that we have long-term is to train church members, lay leaders, and pastors.
God is at work in the lives of our friends through new Bible studies, a recent profession of faith, deeper growth, and an increased curiosity that we are seeing as people ask questions about faith.
We've been able to continue to take food packages to those who are really in need. We have been able to keep reaching out to people through services online. We've even had a few people come to Christ.
We've been able to serve that community, to give them food, and we are seeing more people come to know Christ. There are a few that are even asking to be baptized.
Thank you for giving.
Thank you, Alliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for praying, and thank you for giving.
We're not stopping looking out for the needs of our neighbors.
It is a privilege to be here at a time like this.
God has provided in miraculous ways.
We're grateful to be uniquely positioned to be the hands and feet of Christ.
Thanks so much for praying for us.
Thank you for standing with us.
Thank you for keeping me here.
Hey, I wanted you to see that video to say thank you. But more than that, it's a reminder that no matter what our circumstances are, the church is an important part of life. No matter how or what is happening, the church has a message. No matter what is happening, the church is still makes a difference. The world can be in lockdown, but the gospel is still applicable. So no matter what you're doing this summer, remember, prioritize your spiritual life. Also, look for ways that you can serve the kingdom by serving your community. Now, this week, our story takes us to the Red Sea. Israel finds themselves between a rock and a hard place, and that is right where God wants them to be. Listen, and you'll find out why this week. But first, let me remind you of the things that are happening here at Eternal Life Church. Remember that on our schedule is a canoe trip on July the 11th. I trust that you've received the flyer and that you're going to join us. And all the information, I hope that you received that. If not, we'll get it to you. All payments have to go through the church in order to get a church discount. So we'll need to know how many people are going. So if you're going to go, please let us know before July the 6th so we can report that into the place where we're going. The Blackwater River Canoe Rental, whatever it is. Plan to join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll have out on the beach and have a dinner. You know, it's hashtag not alone. It's hashtag on the river together. That's where we're going to be. All right, so at the end of July, then, we're going to be going to a church family camp up at Poplar Point. It'll be July 30 through August the 2nd, just before school starts off again, and we'll get a last chance to have a good time together. We have flyers with information for you. The cost is $108 per person, plus that's for the room. I mean, that's when you're in the room, 3 nights and 8 meals. But also, if you want to take your RV, it's $30 a night for a full hookup, plus $48 per person for the meals for the 3 days. There's discounts for larger families, also kids that are 5 years old or under 5 years old. So let us know if that's the case for you, and we'll share with you the discounts. Kids 5 years old and older will stay in a dorm if their parents want them to. The day will include a morning chapel, a lot of games, putt-putt golf, hanging out at the pool. There's a gymnasium that's air conditioned. We can go and have a lot of games in there and play in there. You know, the kids will have a great time. The adults can hang out and just socialize together, whether it be at the pool or wherever it is. So register soon so that we can be ready to go there as well. Don't forget that we have weekly Zoom Bible studies every Monday night at 6:30. Not Wednesday any longer, but every Monday nights at 6:30. We're in the Gospel of John, so join us there. If you need an invitation, let me know. Debbie will send you an invitation so you can link in and be a part of our Zoom Bible study on Monday nights. Don't forget the Gilly family in your prayers this week. You know, with the AFib, with Barbara's knee, and also with Melody with her MS, and as she's been struggling with that. Keep that family in your prayers. Also, Lanier Gray, keep him in your prayer for his cancer as he battles it with chemotherapy and whatever else the doctor comes up with, to fight the cancer. But anyway, as far as that goes, keep those people in your prayer. And if you have a prayer need, just let me know. Call me, come by, text me, whatever you need to do. And remember, if you want to give, you can donate through our website, www.eternallifecma.com. There's a donate button there, and you can donate very easily that way. Or you can put it in the mail, Post Office Box 207, Leon, Alabama, 36549. Or you can always drop it by the office, and we'll be happy to receive your gift that way. Thank you, and I hope you have a blessed day and enjoy the sermon. Today I've got extra earbuds. If I start talking to myself, I'm not really talking to myself, I'm talking to Josh. He's over here talking to me probably through my microphone in my ear. Only thing he would say though, Calvin's getting close to 11 o'clock, you gotta quit. You need to get over with, it's done.
Oh.
And now Josh and Charlie, they've always come up with something new. So today I got 2 microphones because they're trying to make the video better. We've been trying to work it out as we go along to do something a little better than before. The sound last week wasn't very good, so now we're trying the microphone way. So we'll try that. If it doesn't work, then we'll do something different again next week, I'm sure. They'll keep trying until they get it right. But anyway, there's a story told of 2 old friends who bumped into each other. And one of them looked down, really discouraged. Wasn't really, and the other person, the friend saw him and said, "Why are you so discouraged? What's going on? What's wrong? What's been happening in your life?" And he says, "Well, 3 weeks ago my uncle died." He goes, "Oh, yeah, he left me $40,000 at his will." Well, that was nice. Then 2 weeks ago, a cousin of mine, I never even knew him, and when he died, he left me $85,000. Well, wow, that's pretty good. No, you don't understand. Last week, my aunt passed away, and I inherited nearly $250,000. Like, no, I don't understand. Why are you so bummed? This week, nothing. Oftentimes, our perspective will determine our attitude. So when we become spoiled, we might have to just step back a little bit and for a moment to gather ourselves and remember to be thankful. Thankful for the things that we have, the blessings that we have. Now, we skipped over the Passover, which would have been this weekend. We did that because, we studied the Passover. I started working, I go, wait a minute, I just did this. We studied the Passover for Easter this year, so we skipped over that rather than give you the same message again today. So, in that lesson, I just want to kind of recap it though. In the lesson of the Passover, it was whenever their faith became alive. It was their faith, the Bible says that without works, your faith is dead. So the Passover is all about faith taking on works. They had to go and get a lamb on a certain day. Then they had to kill the lamb on another day. And they had to take the blood and sprinkle it around the doorpost. They also had to have a staff in their hand, their shoes on, dressed and ready to go. Because this is the day that you're going to be released from your bondage. And it's all about putting feet to your faith, having works added to your belief to create a live faith in your life. Because if you don't do anything about what you believe, your faith is dead. And so that's what the Passover is all about. And so now these are baby Christians. They've exercised their faith. They put feet to their beliefs. They began to work out the things that they in their lives, their faith, because before that they didn't have to do anything. And so now, today, their baby faith has got to grow. And the only way that our faith grows is by testing. And so we're going to talk about today about our faith being tested so that it can grow. And we're in Exodus chapters 13 and 14. So we'll begin in verse 17 of chapter 13 today as we read here now. And this is what it says. Now when Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was near for God said, the people might change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. Hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, and the sons of Israel went up in a martial array from the land of Egypt. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had made sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and and you shall carry my bones from here with you. Then they set out from Sukkoth and camped in Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord was going before them in a pillar of cloud by day and to lead them on their way, and a pillar of fire by night to give them light, that they may travel by day or by night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Now, did you see how Moses there in verse 19 put an example of mature faith right in the middle of the story? You know, he said when we left, we had to take Joseph's bones because hundreds of years before, God had spoken to Joseph and said, Joseph, you know, this isn't your land. And Joseph knew this isn't where we're going. This isn't our home. This is not where we're going to live. So he said, take my bones when you leave. I know God's going to take care of you. I know God is going to take you from this land back to the promised land, back to our home, back to where we grew up, back to where we live. And that's our home. And God's going to take us home again someday. Make sure you take my bones with you. That's faith. In Hebrews 11, it says it this way. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. And they admitted that they were aliens in a strange earth. And in verse 39 of Hebrews 11 says, these were all commended for their faith. Why? Yet none of them received what they had been promised. Faith that took you to the grave and never having seen what was promised. People today in the Christian faith do that in some ways. On our deathbed, we take our faith to the grave with us. We say, I believe one day I will be resurrected. One day I will rule and reign with Christ on this earth. I believe that, and the people who stand at their deathbed or lie on their deathbed, just before they die, they still have that belief. They say, I believe I'll see you again someday. One of these days, we're going to be resurrected together, and we're going to live together again. Mom, I'm going to see you someday. I'm going to see you. Do you say your goodbyes? It's just so long. It's not goodbye. I'll see you again someday. That's the kind of faith that Joseph had. Now contrast that with the immature faith that the Israelites of this day had at this time. It says when the example of mature faith was given, and then he said, I will trust God even though I'm dying, and when my deathbed, I will trust him. But this is what their faith, verse 17 said. Now when Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines. Why? It was the shortest trip, he said, even though it was more near to where they were going. But the people might change their minds when they see war and return back to Egypt. God said that they left, and I'm taking them a long way around because the short way, there's an enemy. And they are not mature enough in their faith to face this enemy. They're not ready for war. Their faith is too small. Although they did not see themselves that way, look what it said in verse 18. Hence God led the people around the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. Then it said this, the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. In other words, they went up dressed for battle. Because they thought, we're our own country now. We're ready to battle. We've seen what we've done, what our God's done to Pharaoh and to Egypt. We're ready. We're ready. Do you get the picture? They believe they're ready for battle. They're all dressed for war. They're going to go and take on the world. But God knows better. If I lead them to battle quickly, they will run back to Egypt. That's the reality of their situation. Picture a Christian, a new Christian, tempted to go back to the old lifestyle again. Go back to their old friends again. Go back to their old ways and live their old ways again. So that's what they would do. They're not ready for that. So I'm going to lead them a long way around to a special event that's going to take place. And we'll see what's special about that event. But they're high in their spirit, thinking that they just defeated the Egyptians. They can't defeat them. But just one of the verses that you should remember as a young Christian, or someone that says, God saves the humble, but he brings low those with eyes that are haughty. And in 1 Peter chapter 5, humble yourselves therefore under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And in Romans 12 it says, do not think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the measure of faith God has given to you. This is what the Israelites had to learn. So God says, okay, you think you're ready. You've got your battle gear on. I know your heart. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you a test. We're going to test your faith right here, right now. And he leads them to a different direction. Exodus chapter 14, verse 1. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-zephon, opposite it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the sons of Israel, we are wandering aimlessly in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after them, and I will be honored through Pharaoh and all of his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did so. So when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled Pharaoh, and that his servants had changed the heart toward the people, and they said, what is this that we've done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So they made his chariots ready and took his people with him. And he took 600 select chariots and other chariots of Egypt and officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he chased after the sons of Israel as the sons of Israel were going out boldly. Then the Egyptians chased after them with all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, the horsemen and his army, and they overtook them camping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel looked, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they became very frightened. So the sons of Israel cried out unto the Lord. Then they said to Moses, is this because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would be better for us to have served the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Oh my goodness. So much for the tough guys, all dressed up, ready for battle. Let's look at a couple of interesting things, though, in this story here. First of all, God led them into a dead-end street when they were being chased by a huge army. Now, it would be kind of like being chased by a gang who ran down, and then you run down a dead-end alley. There's just no place to escape, no place to go. We don't know exactly where the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, but everyone seems to agree that wherever it was a place where they were trapped and they couldn't run away. Now, I can remember years ago, whenever I studied, I got the impression that for some reason, through maybe topography or something, that there was a mountain range that went along and it kind of went into the ocean. And I thought, well, you know, they had gone down this place, and on the one side is the mountains, the other side is the ocean, and behind them is the Egyptians, and they were trapped in this alleyway. But I don't know, the way I read it now, maybe that wasn't correct, but however it was, they were trapped. They could not go anywhere. They had the sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them. The Egyptians are chasing after them, and you noticed also it said that God hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would chase after them. Here is a point where their faith is tested. What are they going to do? Did they pass or did they fail? God tests us not intended to judge us. Not in this case. God already knows where they are. He already knew. He said, if I take them the other way and the Philistines are there, they're going to get in a battle with the Philistines and they're going to run back to Egypt and they're going to say that they would just as soon stay here. So God knows where their heart is. He knows where their faith is. He already knows. So what is this test about? They're being tested not to find out whether they will fail or not. They're being tested so they can see themselves where they are in their spiritual journey, where they are in their faith. They can judge themselves accordingly. The test is so that they will know, not that God will know. It's interesting. in taking us where we are, moving us forward in our faith, He has to take us kind of like when you're in college and you come into the classroom and the teacher says, take out a pencil and paper, we're going to do a pop quiz. And everybody's, oh man. And so everybody takes out their paper and the questions are asked. You write down your answers and then you grade your own paper and then you fold it up and put it in your book because they don't even give a grade to it. It's kind of like that. The reason the teacher does that is not to harass us, and it's not to give us a grade. The teacher does that to let you know where you are in your studies. Are you far enough along? Do you remember what I've been teaching? If I were to give you a test today, where would you be? How much more do you need to study? That's the whole purpose of a pop quiz. That's not where your grade's not turned in. There's a story told about a certain salesman, and he was waiting to see a purchasing agent to submit his bid for this project. Now, while he was in this office waiting, they'd sent him in, he couldn't help but notice that on his desk, the competitor's bid was sitting right there on the desk. And he just kind of glanced over and was looking at the bid, was reading along, and then right where the price is, there's a Coke can sitting right over top of the price. And he said, man, if I only knew the price this guy submitted, it would sure help me with my bid. And he's like, what should I do? And after a little bit of thinking, well, nobody's watching, he's looking around, he goes and he lifts up the Coke can to see the price under the bid. And when he lifts up the can, 1,000 BBs come falling out the bottom of it and spread all over the table and all over the floor. He didn't get the bid. It's kind of like that. Testing to see your integrity. Where are you at in your integrity? Are you going to be trustworthy if I give you the bid? Can I trust you? God was testing Israel to see where they were in their own lives. How good is their faith? How strong is their faith? What are they going to do when they're stuck between a rock and a hard place? Between the Red Sea, the mountains, and the enemy behind them. Like on the song that she was singing, on that road to the Red Sea. They're on the road to the Red Sea, going to a testing to know where they are in their lives. When was the last time you were between a rock and a hard place? When was the last time your faith was being tested? Maybe it was when you were at work and your boss told you that you need to fudge on these numbers. You need to do something that you shouldn't be doing. You know it with integrity, it would not have integrity in it. And you're being tested. You know, every summer we hear on the news about people who come to the Gulf shores of the Gulf of Mexico. And most summers, there'll be at least one or maybe more where a young adult will get out into the water and the current will catch them and take them out and they will drown. What kind of blow that must be to the family. Now, I don't know if these people are Christians or not Christians, but if they are, now you've got this young woman who just lost her husband and a whole lifetime ahead of her. She's now a widow with these children to take care of. What a test to her faith. How is she going to react? Well, who's she going to believe? Will she continue to trust God in her life? What if you lose your job and you believe, or maybe you believe that God's calling you to a new job, and you think this change can be a very faith-building experience, moving to a new community without knowing anyone that lives there can make your faith grow. Every day has choices to help us to know how mature we are in our faith. The story reminds me of a song. It's a little different, so you'll have to really pay close attention. But the name of the song is Smell the Color Nine. This is a song I used to listen to years and years and years ago. And it's about how someone who wants to sense God is close by them. He wants to hear God or feel Him or touch Him. But God always seems to be so far away. By trying to hear or see God is very difficult, and like trying to smell the color 9. And of course, there is no such a thing, because 9 is not a color. And even if 9 was a color, you don't smell a color. That's the point of the song. There's a line in the song that says this: I would take no for an answer just to know that I heard you speak. And I'm wondering why I've never seen the signs that they claim they see. A lot of special revelation meant for everybody but me. Maybe I don't truly know you, or maybe I just simply believe. Because I can sniff, I can see, I can count up pretty high, but these faculties aren't getting me any closer to the sky. But my heart of faith keeps pounding, so I know I'm doing fine. But sometimes finding you is just like trying to smell the color 9. See, in a strange way, this is kind of where the Israelites are. They have seen all of the miracles, but they came through, all these miracles came through Moses. Their faith was never tested until last week, until the Passover, whenever they had to do something. Before that, they had to do nothing but sit and watch the hand of God. And they've seen it time after time after time. Now, when they're stuck in this place, this hard place, are they going to believe God? Are they going to trust Him? So just like in the song, you know that God is there. You're trying to follow the best you can. But you haven't let Him have complete control of your life. You don't really trust Him yet. When the battle gets tough, you don't seem to come out on top most of the time. Now the second thing we see in the story is God led them there so that they could grow in their faith. If God had taken them to a place where they could get away, they would have gone back to their old life. They would have gone back to Egypt. They would have gone back to their old ways. And they would have gone back to captivity, to being slaves again to the Egyptians. And some Christians are that way. Or they pray and they want to become a Christian and they go back. And they live their old life again. They go back to their old ways. Here's how it went for them. Beginning in verse 13 of chapter 14. But Moses said to the people, "Do not fear. Stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will see them never again. The Lord will fight for you while you keep silent." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the sons of Israel shall go over in the midst of the sea on dry land. As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all of his army, through his chariots and through his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariots and through his horsemen." The angel of God who had been going before the camp of Israel moved and went behind them, and a pillar of cloud moved before them and stood behind them, so that it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And there was the cloud along with darkness, yet it gave light on the night. Thus the one did not come near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord swept the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and it turned the sea into dry land, so that the waters were divided. The sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea on dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them on their left and on their right. Then the Egyptians took up the pursuit, and all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. At the morning watch, the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and a cloud, and through the army of the Egyptians into chaos or into confusion. He caused their chariot wheels to swerve, and he made them drive with difficulty. So the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots and their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Even Pharaoh's entire army that had been gone into the sea after them, not even one of them remained. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power which the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. How did God treat the Israelites whose faith was so small? That's the first thing. Their faith was small. They cried out and said, "We'd be better off, but we can't go back." See, God put them in a place where they couldn't return. They had no choice. And how did he treat them when they were there? He first of all calmed their fears. He protected them. The cloud of fire, the cloud by day and the fire by night was one thing, and it settled between and lifted up from in front of them and went behind them and settled. So there was a darkness behind to the Egyptians, and it was light to the Israelites in the front. If you had yourself in a difficult place, one of the first things you're going to notice is probably going to be that God will, as you pray, God will give you a release, or He will give you peace, a peace in your heart to understand that God is with you. As you pray, you're going to gain that sense that God's there. His protection is there. It'll be a peace that passes all understanding. You won't understand, you won't see the victory, but you'll have this peace in your heart. You'll know that you know that you know that God is with you and He's going to take care of you. That's the first thing you're going to notice. That's what this cloud did. When it settled between them, it kept them apart. They're like, God's protecting us. That peace came. Secondly, God gave them another demonstration of His power and love. Moses was told to just wait, see the salvation of the Lord. They really didn't have much choice, did they? They were at the end of the dead-end street. God patiently took them by the hand and walked them through it again. And the third thing is that was God defeated the enemy and brought glory to Himself. It's important this is important because really it was bringing them and growing their faith as they see God once again save them and bring them out. So they stood and they watched the Egyptians wash up on shore. And they had to say, wow, what an amazing God we have to wash these men up, to kill our enemies. A little note from the beginning, God said that He was going to show Pharaoh that He was the one and true God. Look at verse 25. It said, this is in the NIV, it said, and He made their wheels of their chariots to come off, so that they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting against them. They finally learned their lesson, but it's now too late. Who God truly, truly is. I'll finish with this story. There's a story of a young boy named Sandy. He liked to hang out at Mom and Pop's store. Pop didn't know what was wrong with Sammy, but what his problem was, but the other boys were always teasing him. They were punching him, and they were always making fun of him, and they called him Slow Sammy, Slow Sammy. And sometimes they would take a dime and a nickel. And to mock him, they would say, Sammy, you can have one. Which one you want? And because the nickel is bigger, he always would grab the nickel, and then they would laugh at him and have a good time. And one day after they'd done that, when they said, hey, which one do you want, Sammy? And he took the nickel, the store owner, Pop, he came over to Sammy, took him aside and said, Sammy, you know these boys are making fun of you, don't you? You do know that a nickel is worth less than a dime. You don't take that nickel because you think it's worth more, do you? Sammy said, no, I knew that. But if I took the dime, they would quit giving me the nickel. The Pharaoh thought that he was so powerful. But who is the real God now? These days it seems as if evil is winning. Chaos and confusion are all around. It seems as if only God can get us out of this one, out of this mess we're in. Maybe God puts us in this kind of a mess, puts us between a rock and a hard place as a country, as a nation, as a family, as a community, so that we have to turn to Him. That we have to know He is the only one that can save us. I have nothing against the mask, and I have nothing against being careful. I think that we should do all of that. But God is our salvation, not the CDC, not the politicians, not anything in this country, anything in this world is going to get us out of this mess, but God Himself. It is He who can and will do it. So don't worry, the game's not over yet. Maybe, just maybe, things are not as bad as we think they are, because God's in control and He's there to get us out of this mess. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for your blessings in our lives. I thank you, Lord, that we've seen you move in people's lives. We've seen you taking care of problems and difficulties time after time after time. But it seems like we still have to come to this place sometimes to remember that you are the one. You are our salvation. You are the one that takes us down the Red Sea road and then deliver us in the end. And so, Lord, we want to submit to you today. We want to give to you our lives afresh and anew. Our problems, our concerns, our situation. And Lord, trust that you will bring us out. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Would you stand this morning?